as we welcome to the show, as we do every Wednesday, a longtime NHL player agent. Joins us in the business of sports, Ritch Winter. Ritch, welcome back, my man. How you doing?
I'm still hoping you replace long time with vital, dynamic at some point, but I'm okay with long time. But I'm good. Everybody
Well,
should
it
be
gives you more of like an experience note, right? It's like,
experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like it's like when you go to a restaurant. When you go to a restaurant when you're 20 and they say, "Sir, can I get your table?" You look at your date and you're going, "Excited, I'm a sir," right? Then you turn 60 and you go, "Can you just say, 'Hey, dude,' or something?" Like, you got something else, Like, well,
you're in a lounge chair. You're sitting back so far there. I thought it was like you're thinking you're in a sports car here on the show today. You're leaning way back.
This is just a comfortable sort of in the Stanley Cup, Dominik Hasek, Joseph Vasicek mode. I don't know. But you asked how I was, and you asked me this question a while back. Have you ever fired a player? You remember that?
Yeah.
I fired 2 today.
2 players.
Yeah.
How did that go? Like, do you just how does it work where you say this relationship is ending? Like, what's your words when you say you're
okay?
fired?
The tactic was so I won't tell you the players, but I worked really hard to get this player on the particular team he wanted. It actually took me 3 months. It was his dream. This is where he wanted to play. It restricted me quite a bit. Got him there, and he wants to play with his brother. So his brother looks like he's signing with another team. So today, after sitting down with the general manager just 4 days ago, telling him how thankful he is, you brought him here, it's his dream, he decided to tell the team services guy that he was walking away from the team today and he wouldn't be there for the rest of the season. Give him 2 hours to find a player. I thought to myself, maybe not as moral as I would have handled it, but I've never heard anything like it. I think the young man's just probably
destroyed on his team. Obviously, I'm assuming this is in Europe.
No,
in the American League.
It's in North America.
Wow.
It's not the East Coast League, I'll only say. But anyway, I just quickly. So how does it happen? Well, first the general manager calls you. I hadn't really even known. It was really strange. I got this cryptic text today. I sort of did what I said I might do. I told this team services guy to get another player for tonight. I'm like, well, that's weird. Team services guy. Is he hurt? Like your natural reaction is something went wrong, like his wife fell down the stairs. She's hurt, or, he's having a baby, or he's not having a baby. But then the general manager calls me. I go, oh, okay, now I get it. Yeah, you're telling me he left the team, right? He goes, yeah. Did you know about it? I said, I'm telling you, buddy, I had no idea. I am so embarrassed for him. I am so angry. I can't believe he would let his teammates down like he did here. I said, because what seems so bizarre is this is ruining his career in North America. Because the next team that falls says, okay, so he left in the middle of the season. What happened there? That general manager probably won't give a really, really good, referral. And it's done. It's over for him. And he's probably done the same thing to his brother at the same time, that's the bizarre thing about it. But so how it happens is you talk to the GM and you tell the other GM that's thinking of signing the brother, because, you don't want him to get in the middle of something bizarre. And then you just send him a termination text and follow it up with an email. And like the other agent who had him previously, who's a friend of mine, said, oh, yeah, how you feeling today? I said, I don't know. I said to Neil, and he said, because the day they fired me was the day I hadn't felt that good for a long time. They fired him. So I said, well, Neil, I have it on you because I just fired them. He said, well, anyway, nice kids, but just, unless if they've had 100 concussions, I sort of get it. I don't think they have. They play kind of on the outside, very skilled. So I don't know. It's something where you just go, you're hurt almost, because as much as this is unacceptable behavior, you feel bad that a young man, if for whatever reason, it might be a passionate desire to play with his brother, but it's when he ruins, he basically give himself a death sentence. Now, I hope they enjoy playing in Slovenia together, because, it's a nice country there, good, nice landscape, food's good. So, because that's probably what he just did with this decision. The guy's a point a game guy in the American Hockey League. Anyway, so other than that, that was an interesting distraction for today. That's sort of the life of an agent at its most bizarre.
Yeah, well, that because that's never happened. Have you ever had a player up and quit during a season before?
Once. But here's how it went. It was like one of the best calls unlike this one. So Vinny Prospal, who was drafted, and people in the Czech Republic didn't think he could skate. It was ridiculous. He couldn't play. Well, he plays 1,000 games in the NHL, right? And he's a terrible skater, but he sees the ice very well. He loves the game. He's the only guy that loves playing for John Tortorella. Like, he loves it. He followed John. He left Tampa, followed him to New York. He was trying to follow him to Vancouver, where this story will end, because he works so hard. John Torts has no problems with players who work their tail off. Anyway, so this player, he's now 37, 38, and it took me a little longer than normal to get him a job. I get him a job. He flies from his home in Tampa. It's Vinny Prospal, so it's not a secret. And so Vinny, a great guy. Like, he's just a superb guy. And he phones me like the next morning after practice. He says, "You're going to kill me." I go, "Why?" He said, "Rich," because he spent all that time with his family. He's taking his kids to hockey. He's got all this time. He's not on the road, not doing anything. "I found something I love more than hockey." I said, "What is it?" I kind of knew what it was. "I love my wife and my kids. I just want to go home." I said, "Vinny, what would you think would make me mad about that? How many hockey players leave the game and find something they love more than the game, and it happens to the people that are living in their home?" I think it's amazing. It was just like a great call. And I called Vancouver. They weren't too pleased that they just paid to fly him all the way across the country, but nobody was really upset. The kid loves his family, coach, more than us. Well, go figure.
Yeah,
that was a good one. So that was the only other time, but I understood. It was fun to deal with Vinny, because in the last 4 or 5 years of his career, people say, "I worry about his skating." And I'd always say, "Guys, he couldn't skate when he was 18. Like, what are you talking about?" Right? Like, he's not slower. He was always this slow. He made his living by standing on the half wall and making sure some guy who was wide open, AKA a Draisaitl or somebody else, finds a Hyman type. And he lived off of that. Anyway, so that was a nice call. And to this day, I remember Vinny one time. I said, "I heard, Vinny, we got a little problem. You and I, like, you might not be happy with the service." He goes, "Rich, if I have a problem, who do you think will be the first to hear?" "Geez, what are you, crazy? I love you, man. Like, you would have known this." Like, "Okay, thanks." He's just very matter of fact, just a wonderful kid. I love the guy.
Now, I want to talk about, because you brought over lots of European players. You've talked about lots of guys who are released and sent back and end up to have really good careers. The Oilers today signed David Thomas Savic. He just turned 29 in February. He's leading the Swedish Elite Hockey League this season in points. He was, I think, second or third last year. So he's going to come over, signed a 1-year deal at $1.2 million that starts next year to take a chance. Now, you had Mark Giordano when he went over to Russia, left the NHL, went over there. Obviously, it was the right move. Do you, as an agent, because some guys, if you're not getting an opportunity when you're 25 or 4 or 5 or 6, you can sit there and grind it out. Now, how do you balance knowing you just need ice time? You just got to play and gain your confidence back. And sometimes it might be in Europe. It might be in the American League. It doesn't have to be, where some guys, I just want to be in the NHL. How do you massage that as an agent, where sometimes a step back might lead to 2 steps forward?
It's like Muhammad Ali said, the best punches I ever laid was after I stepped back twice, right? And then leaned into it. But you just have to talk to them about opportunity is the mother of a massive amount of money in sports, right? And, there's in this job you have, and in my job, there's probably, if there's not 1,000, there's 5,000 kids we've heard, "Hey, I was better than, I just needed power play time, man. I can't believe, my career ended," or, and so it's like, focus on opportunity. Marty Straka was probably the best example of this. He got bought out by Florida, and which is mind-boggling to me. But coach wouldn't play him. Coach is never wrong. You guys need to understand that, because when the coach says you can't score, he puts him on the 4th line, so can't score. And if he likes the player, you'll get a few points playing with Draisaitl and McDavid, no matter how bad he is, right? So it kind of works out. Anyway, they let him go, and I said, "Marty, they give you $500,000 to go home. You're making $750. There's no minimum salary back this. I'm going to ask for $250, not a nickel more, and don't talk to me otherwise." Because if I ask for $250 for a guy who scored 30 goals as a rookie, who's still 26, like, I'm going to have as many suitors as I want, and we will pick the right spot. Within a year and a half, he had 85 points, followed it up with 95 points, scored about 300 or 400 more points, and played for 7 more years at an elite level. Because he landed in the spot. One, he played in Pittsburgh as a rookie, scored 30 in Pittsburgh. He was comfortable there. really good friends with Crazy Man Yager, and they love each other. And Jan Herdina was there, and Michael Roosevelt. So he's got the whole Czech mafia. He's feeling really good. And he goes there, and, you know, how is it possible? Like, they bought a guy out, and within 3 years, he scored 250 more points. It's just crazy, man. I guess it'll be about 5 years, he got the 250 points. So it's, yeah, so you try and, like, I don't know if this young man is, I think it's a big transition and big challenge to make it at 29, but it's possible. With Gio, it was actually more of a Keenan concern, because they offered him a two-way contract because Daryl Sutter had this, just policy. If you don't play more than 60 games, you can't have a one-way. Gio played 48, but he scored 8 goals that year. So,
yeah,
like, okay. And Gio was just thinking, like, they offer me $1.2 million. They're going to play me a lot. I said, look, you're going to be on that big ice surface. It'll help you with your lateral movement. And the fear was that Keenan is either going to play Gio 30 or minutes a night or 3, right? Because he's not predictable. And we just thought, you know what? Gio's comes from a fan.
Was his head coach in Russia?
I don't remember.
Oh,
some guy.
Oh no, Keenan was the head coach in Calgary. Sorry.
Yeah, Keenan was the head coach in Calgary. So we were basically running away from Mike Keenan because the risk was too great on a two-way contract, and the opportunity and the financially. And so in Gio's case, it was a combination of, we thought it was a really good development opportunity to pursue his goal of becoming a better elite NHL defenseman. Like I always told you, when I told Gio when I first met him, I thought he'd be a top 2 NHL defenseman. He's like, he's pretty excited about that. Never drafted, thinks I might be losing my mind, but he's happy I have that much. I'm that impressed with him. I was wrong, of course. He wasn't a top 2. He was a Norris Trophy winner. But so he goes over there, he gets all this experience, and it comes back. And I think the day that Gio became a leader was when he went into the dressing room after he got back from Russia. Now, remember Daryl Sutter, Daryl Sutter's, most players have a fair amount of fear when they're dealing with Daryl. He's a wonderful guy, but a little bit less than dynamic as a coach and GM, pretty strong-willed. He said, I'm never, Rich, just, we get along really well, but I'm never moving off this two-way, Rich. Never happened. Then, of course, Gio came back and they offered him 1.5 one-way. And he just said to me, I walked into that dressing room because I called him to ask him how it went, how it felt to be back. And he said, I walked into that dressing room, and he's a big smile on his face. He says, everybody in that room, everybody knew I kicked Daryl Sutter's butt. And I think that was a time where, as a young player, they're so intimidated generally, by management, that Gio stood up as a young man to one of the tougher, more respected players and coaches and GMs in the game, and he won. I think that dynamic was probably as important as working on his mobility. He's playing like 28 minutes a night over there. He got lots of ice time. So it's just trying to help them understand the Marty Straka story, the Giordano story, and try and just help them understand that taking a step back might be the best thing. And I always tell this with young kids, these young kids, I don't want to go to the minors. Well, I look at ice time. I always, especially Europeans, do you have a statute in your square at home? Oh, everybody does, right? How tall is it? It's like, whoa, it's big, about double my size. So I said, how deep do you think the base is? 6 inches, 8 inches? No, gosh, it's got to be really deep. And I said, you know what the base of an athlete is in hockey? It's ice time. You build your base layer by layer by layer. You play here for the next year and a half for 8 minutes. Not much happens. You play down there, Ziggy Palfy, or some of these other kids, Michael Roosevelt, and some of these other kids that had great NHL careers. That's the base. And guess what? Once you get that base and you're ready, we will erect you in this, in the center square or center ice or the blue line in the National Hockey League, and you won't be knocked over. You'll be fine. And I think if you have experience and you can tell stories and you can, and that of other players, it's not easy because, especially the world we live in, everybody wants it easy. Jesus, my stuff I give to my kids and my grandchildren now compared to what we got, like, it's mind-boggling. There's an expectation that it is what it is, that they're going to get what they want, and the work ethic is lost on them. I always usually when a guy goes down, I say, like, you're going down, you're going to get a lot of this ice time to build the base, and I'm sending you 6 Kobe Bryant podcasts. I just want you to listen to them. One every week. Just keep listening to, because the one message Kobe will give anybody that would have listened to him: practice harder than you play, work your tail off. I mean, Kobe used to come into practice. When guys hear this, like, it's very regular for him to come in at 4:00 in the morning, shoot 1,000 baskets, drive home, have breakfast with his kids, drive his kids to school. He wants to be a good dad as well as a good player, then go to practice. Now, I don't know if that's superhuman. I don't think most guys can do it, but I try and give them the clear understanding that it's hard work. And I've learned Vinny Prospal can't skate. He played 1,000 games in the NHL. Like it's all about hard work. Like it really, talent is, there's a great book called Talent is Overrated, written by
the book about grit. Unbelievable.
Well, grit's the same thing, like Angela Duckworth. It's just about, like, if you do something for 100 hours in a very focused fashion, you're going to be good at it. Now, sometimes what will happen is people will be working hard. I'll have a kid tell me he's working really hard. It's usually not as hard as he can. He doesn't get it. But let's say I'm holding weights, two free weights, one above my chest in a perfect position, one way off to the left here. I can be working really hard and I'm strengthening my body on the right hand and tearing my shoulder out. So sometimes it's about two things: teaching them about how to work hard and then making sure they work hard at the right things. And that's what we spend a lot of time doing. A lot of people are surprised. The focus never is much here on the contract. The contract just comes. When Marty Spracca got 92 points, do you think we had any trouble getting him a deal?
No, probably not. Well, you know what? We'll talk to a guy who negotiates those deals next on the
With me.
Sports. Yeah, it's Assistant GM of the Orders, Bill Scott, will join us next on the Gregor Show, presented by Play Alberta. We continue on Sports 1440, Orders Nation, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Jason Gregor Ritch Winter with you in the business of sports as we get to our big guest of the day, brought to you by the Spruce Grove Saints. They want to thank all of their fans, all of their sponsors for supporting them in their inaugural season in the BCHL. They look forward to welcoming you back to their brand new rink next year. So thanks for supporting from the Spruce Grove.
So are they playing in the Silent Ice this next year?
No, they got the new arena in Spruce Grove.
Oh, really? Wow, nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's really good. It looks. I did a tour of it a few months ago, man. That thing looks unreal. So it's going to be it's going to be one of the best barns going. So I think
nice.
Hockey fans who in Spruce Grove and area are going to like it. As we welcome in now assistant general manager for the Edmonton Oilers, Bill Scott joins us. Bill, welcome back to the show, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jason? Good to see you, Rich.
Hey, Bill. How's it going?
Do you guys how is negotiating, Bill? Because you negotiate a lot of the contracts. That's part of your, that's part of the role as a GM. So we'll get into the whole role. But how is it? Does personal relations matter between agents? For you when it comes to negotiating? Do you find it's easier if you get along with a certain guy, or some guys just
I'm easy, like I just give whatever Bill wants, but there might be other guys that are harder on him.
I think I don't know that a personal relationship is going to get you necessarily a better deal. The agent's always going to look out for his player and try and find fair market value. The team's always going to try and get the best deal for themselves. But I think it helps you find common ground, and it helps keep a negotiation from getting contentious. Because you're certainly going to have disagreements in negotiations, but as long as you can continue to negotiate, that's a big thing. So I think when you're friendly with the agents and you have those good relationships, you've taken time to cultivate those, it certainly helps in a negotiation to get something done that works for both sides.
Well, I think, Bill, where it does help probably, and you think of Calvin Pickard as a great example, Calvin had a number of choices before he signed here. And I think one of the times where relationships are critical is when someone makes a commitment to me that they're going to do this. Like if it's a young kid coming out of college, I promise I'm going to give him 5 games or whatever the case may be. Really, when it came down to Calvin signing here or not, a couple of things. We believed that he had an opportunity we thought to seize the number 1 job, even back then. That was back in his thinking. But, talking to Keith, talking to Bill, and then a couple of other relationships, like he had there's people in Bakersfield that were know Calvin very well. All of those relationships resulted in Calvin saying, okay, I want to go here. And then the numbers were discussed, and initially on a 2-way, there wasn't much difference of opinion. Bill and I had a little bit of a disagreement. He was trying to cheap out last year and get him for less than $1 million. But look, that's what their job is, right? But $1 million, I knew eventually he's going to come around, because $1 million for a good backup that everybody in the team would pay $1 million just to show up because he's such a great character. They would do that. But more importantly for the Oilers, I think at this point, Calvin's not here if it isn't for the relationships.
Now, Bill, I want to go back into the business of sports. I'd like to talk about the different roles people have. And for you, because people, and not everybody's going to get to be a player. Let's be honest. The vast majority of people aren't going to get to be players, but to get into the NHL. And now your dad was a player agent, funny enough, in Gil Scott for a long time. But now you went to Michigan State. You had the bachelor's degree in business management. You worked for the men's hockey team at the time. So, like, did you have aspirations always? Like, did you have a specific goal? Okay, my goal is I'm going to go to university and I want to be a manager in the National Hockey League.
That's exactly it. I knew that in high school when I knew that my playing career was not going to reach a level that was going to get me to the NHL. I switched focus quickly and said, how else can I get there? I'd like to be a manager. This is what I want to do. And I love the sport of hockey. So even in high school, we had a co-op program where I worked for the junior A hockey team, the Stouffville Spirit, in my last year. And then went to school at Michigan State, knowing it was a good hockey program. Knowing that it would hopefully help my resume coming out of college and getting that degree in business management. But that was always the goal. So that really tailored what I wanted to do in school for the coursework. And then, being around a team and organization, we were one of the top teams in the country for most of my 4 years there. Had a number of NHL players graduate from there and go on to great careers. Sean Horkoff was a senior my freshman year there. We had players like Ryan Miller, John Michael Lyles, just to name a few. So we had a really good team, great program, and that kind of really got my start. And it was nothing more than being basically an equipment manager and doing some video as well. Video wasn't quite as prominent back then in 1999. Just cutting shift tapes and filming the games and things like that. So it wasn't flashy, but it got me at least a bit of a foundation to get to where I am now.
So, yeah, because you just want to be around the team and you can learn a lot of different things. And so, hey, you're an equipment manager, but you're around the team. Then you were the ECH, because when you left school, did you not go to the ECHL and you were the manager of hockey operations?
Yeah, so kind of the career path there. When I was leaving school, I sent out 55 letters basically to people, Hockey Canada, USA Hockey. I'm a dual citizen. And then really to anybody in the NHL that I could think of. I had a few connections through my father who represented some coaches at the time. So he had some connections in the NHL. And out of those 55 letters that I sent out, I got 2 responses. And one was Cliff Fletcher, who was the general manager of Arizona at the time, Phoenix. And he basically just called to say, got your resume, appreciate it, but we're not hiring anybody. But I thought it was really nice that he took the time to call. I'll never forget that. And the other one was David Poyle in Nashville. And he said, we've started an internship program. The first person is currently going through it, but their semester is basically going to end at the end of June. If you have interest in doing that, it's unpaid. You got to find your own housing, come down to Nashville. We'll look at considering you. So as I quickly realized a job in the National Hockey League was not going to just come to me, I said, this sounds pretty good. So I ended up taking that internship. That year, the draft happened to be in Nashville. So I went to Nashville for a few weeks right around the draft, went to their development camp, and then came back home and made some money in the summer and drove back down to Nashville in August. And I was really only there about 6 weeks. During that time, a job opened up in the ECHL, and Rod Pasma was the person hiring. Rod Pasma had been drafted by David Poyle by the Washington Capitals many years earlier. And it was really a hockey administrative job at the AA level with the ECHL. I didn't really know a ton about the ECHL at that time. Had some buddies that had played in it, but really I left Nashville thinking I'm going down a couple levels. It's not where I want to go, but we also knew that lockout was going to be coming the following year. And David said, we're probably going to be letting people go. If you can get a full-time job paid in the hockey business, you should take it right now and run. And I started there in 2003 and was there for 3 years as the manager of hockey operations for the ECHL. And really we were building our schedules out. We were interpreting the bylaws, regulations, CBA. And then in that league, there are all kinds of transactions every day. They have a salary cap that you can change daily. If a player gets called up and a team has an extra $500 on their salary cap, they can distribute that $500 to as many players as they want for the time being. So we would just get mountains of paperwork through that office. And basically I did that job for 3 years and was there 7 days a week in the office during the season in Princeton, New Jersey. And it was a great introduction to the league and some great people along the way. Glenn Gulletson, our assistant coach, was the head coach of Las Vegas Wranglers at the time. So, these relationships that you start early and you don't know where you're going to go, but 20 years later, we're still working together.
Well, I think the message there, Bill, is like I did the same thing, similar thing. When I went to LA, I had a 6-month internship for free. But, first you set the goal, then you just decided I have to do what I have to do. And I think that's the message of your career path is once you set the goal, you've got to be prepared to take any opportunity that comes your way. You can't say, well, I want a bigger office or I'd like to make a little more money. No, David Poyle comes calling. In my case, it was a lawyer named Ted Steinberg, whose clients included Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and others. Like, I'm in the office I'm a kid from Drumheller. I'm working for free, but I'm hanging out with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And that leads to a whole bunch of relationships. And a lot of kids don't understand that. You have a dream, put yourself in a position where somebody might notice, right, Bill?
100%. Yeah, no, that's absolutely it. Like when I would tell my friends I had to be in the office 7 days a week, they didn't think that sounded too great. And at that time, the ECHL, we didn't have big budgets. It wasn't like I got to go travel to a bunch of games. I went to Trenton, which was 20 minutes away on Friday and Saturday nights. And that was really about the only hockey or ECHL hockey that I could, afford to go see at that time. But I think my first job, I made $25,000 a year and lived in the 7th most expensive county in America. So it was a grind. There was a lot of pasta eaten, but that was okay. I loved what I did. It was fun. I was in the business, and I didn't need much of a social life at that time. It was a short-term pain for hopefully what was going to be long-term gain. But I really enjoyed it. It was a great start to my career.
It worked out pretty well.
Yeah. And you worked in the ECHL for 3 seasons, Bill.
Yeah.
And obviously you're making relationships because you know what and it's a balance to know, okay, this isn't my end goal, but I got to be committed while I'm here while also keeping my eyes open. How did you balance that? Because I remember someone telling me they didn't hire a guy because he got the reputation of he was always looking for the next job rather than that job. How did you balance that?
Yeah, you know what? I was just happy to have a job in hockey at that point. Obviously, the first or the second year that I was in the ECHL, the NHL was shut down. So there wasn't really anything.
They made like $25,000 more than the rest of us.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. But so at that time, I was just happy to be there, happy to have a job. Coming out of the lockout, I interviewed with the Toronto Maple Leafs for a job, and being a Toronto kid, that was kind of an exciting opportunity, and didn't end up getting that job. And I can remember my boss came in a few weeks later and he kind of said, "Are you okay? You don't seem happy to be here. You're out of here early, blah, blah, blah." And I thought to myself, I didn't even realize I was doing that, but I think I had been, I had this goal of being in the NHL and working for a hometown team. Sounded great, and didn't get it and didn't realize how it had been affecting me for a couple of weeks after. And it was a great wake up call, and shook it off after that, and everything was fine. But I think when those other opportunities come up, you do need to be a little bit careful in how those interactions go. You want to make sure your boss knows what you might be looking at. And certainly I think there are people in the industry that have a reputation for always looking for the next best thing. And if you do that, you're going to get a reputation, and it's probably not going to serve you well in the long term. It might serve you well in the short term, but it's not going to in the long term. And I think, I'm just happy to be working in this business every day, and was back then. But certainly that was the one wake up call I had, where it was, okay, if I'm giving off that vibe that I'm not satisfied or happy that I'm here, I got to switch that and switch my attitude. Even though I didn't realize I was doing it. So certainly you want to be happy with where you are and show that every day.
It's funny, Bill, because Jason started off this show about talking about the weekend coming. Well, weekend's not a time off for us. We're busy. There's games. And I just find, and I think you feel the same way, like I don't mind any day. Like I like Mondays. I love getting up because Monday's the start of a new week. I haven't talked to Bill since Friday. Calvin's chomping at the bit to get this deal done. I'm excited to talk to him. I think one of the things that's really a blessing in our business, not every day, but most days are pretty fun. Like I don't find, they change a little bit because there's game day on Saturday. You're probably going to one of your kids' games, so it's a little different on the weekend, but like it's pretty fun every day. And that's really, really a great blessing in terms of what we do.
Yeah, I think that's for hockey, certainly, and for really any business. If it's something that you're passionate about, you're going to enjoy doing it every day.
You'll be good at it.
Yeah, and I can honestly say I've never had a day where I didn't want to go to work, where the job was too much and you're depressed about it or anything like that. I've been excited to get to work every day. Certainly there are some days you'd like to sleep in maybe a little bit more, but it's never been a negative about the job. So it's always been an exciting thing to go. And then a lot of that obviously is the people around you, people you're working with, that you're interacting with, on calls with. That's a big part of it. If you have a fun group to work with, that also knows how to work hard, then that makes the job that more.
Well, I'd really like to get into your day to day because I think people be interested in what you do today. And kind of a lot of what you do is what we might do if we were just fans, right? And I think, Jason, we talk about that here on the next segment about, what Bill's doing on a game day. And some of it's he's stuck with meeting me at the rink to take me down into the practice because I don't have a pass and all that kind of stuff. There's just a lot of day-to-day stuff. Some is just a lot of fun in a fan's eyes, but it's also interesting, I think, maybe to talk a little bit about, they got two assistant GMs here, one in Bill and one in Keith Gretzky, and you guys don't do the same things.
Oh, 100%. One of the cool things about my job is no 2 days are the same. Even differentiating between a practice day and a game day. Every day there's something new that comes up, whether it's a contract extension that we're working on, or there's undrafted free agent player that we're going to go scout. I might be out on the road doing that, doing pro scouting as well. We have lots of different things that come up with our players that often the CBA gets involved with them as well. It could be a housing issue for a player that got called up from Bakersfield to Edmonton, and he's looking to get covered for his housing, and he might have a different interpretation what he's entitled to than we think. So we're hunting down those things. There's lots of stuff that we do internally with our staff, reporting wise, in our analytics department that's growing. So there's all kinds of neat kind of just areas of our business that we get into every day. And there's certain things that we do we calendarize on an annual basis that, this time of year, we're going to be looking at these things. But there's a lot of stuff that just comes up in the day to day that we take care of as well. There's so many things that really people don't know happen every day. And Rich, it as a player agent, things that your players are dealing with that nobody ever hears about, that takes up your time every day as well. So we do a lot of those things. Sometimes it's putting out fires on our end, but we have a lot of conference calls with our staff, or whether it's our scouting staff or development staff, get updates on how players are doing, how they're trending, what they need to work on. Do we need to get a skating coach in to see a certain prospect, different things like that. So we're always planning, preparing, and trying to optimize our group and make our players better, because that's ultimately.
Well, and sometimes it's as simple as people forget. Like I remember last year was so funny. You were fun. It was challenging, but you were involved in this. Adam Ernie was a player that people thought should have been in the lineup, wasn't getting played as much as he wanted. But the issue that Kenny Holland and I were dealing with, and Bill and I talked about this throughout the period of time, when Campbell's down, they're saving a lot of money, and Calvin Pickard's up. That is being held sort of in a static position because Kenny's trying really hard to make sure he's not forced to send Calvin down and prevent him from being with his three little kids at Christmas time. So we had that whole dynamic. I remember having a meeting at a very high level spot that Ken likes to populate at Tim Hortons over there at the rink. And we sat down and I remember saying to Ken at the time, if it's just whether you bring up Campbell or not, that's fine. I'll tell Adam just not to worry about it, because once Calvin gets the ball and gets the confidence I've seen in him admit when we talk, he's not going anywhere. Of course, that worked out. But the fact that, like, a lot of people don't see that going on, or when Craig Muni was his wife was breastfeeding, she wasn't feeling good, and he's up and he's injured, and I mean, remember one night Craig played an NHL playoff game with 1 hour sleep, and I don't remember if he was good or bad that night, but there's all those kind of Bill's dealing with that. Like Bill's like, the coaches are talking about, like, just Moons is like, he's sick, man. I don't know what to do. And then, there's just a lot of it's like a big family, right? Like, you just got a lot of issues, and that family has to be up and running and mentally ready. And if you can't, happy wife, happy life, here it means happy wife, happy career, more production. And it's all so intertwined. I think people just have no idea what's going on in your head on a Tuesday.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's so many things. You've touched on it from the player aspect. You've got veteran players that might end up in the minor leagues, and that takes a toll on them and their families and different things like that. So you're dealing with those things. You try and handle everyone professionally and with respect. There's some difficult choices that we have to make in this business, because it is ultimately performance related. Our goal is to win the Stanley Cup. So, our management group will make decisions. Coaching staff makes decisions on a daily basis to try and put our team in the best spot possible to win games. But it affects people, and it affects their families and their lives. And, we talk to the agents, we talk to the players, and try and work with them as best we can through a lot of those situations when we're able to.
Bill Scott joins us. He is the assistant GM of the Oilers. Now, Bill, of course, part of your responsibility is you're the capologist as well.
Mm-hmm.
So do you because the cap it's based on, now is this year 186 days? What is it this year? Because every year is a little different.
192, I think it was.
192. So it splits up. It's for anybody out there. If you have $1 million contract, every day you divide $1 million by 192, that's what you get paid that day. That's what you count on the cap, whether you're playing or not. If you're on the roster, that's what you count. So do you have like obviously it would be a little bit more advanced, but are you like every morning do you get a ding? Okay, this is what our cap space is every day. Like, how does it work monitoring the cap every day?
Yeah, so the NHL has a few tools for us that we can use internally to confirm our cap, but we have our own spreadsheets that we use, and we will verify with the NHL data on a daily basis. Obviously, it's no problem if you're a team that's under the cap and you're not an LTI and you've got lots of space. If you have $10 million in cap space, you're not too worried about your cap during the year. But for a team like us this year, when we invoked LTI on day one of the season, and yet we were still trying to accumulate cap space so that we would have room to maneuver at the deadline. It was a constant monitoring of that cap and what effect each recall or loan would have on the cap. Do we want to keep extra players up here, or do we want to send players down in order to accrue during that time? So it's something we look at on a daily basis, and certainly when we're tight to the cap, like we have been, and we really have been since COVID. Cap's been so tight for most teams, but we've got our own spreadsheets and documents, and we're working on a few other tools actually to enhance that internally. But yeah, we look at it every day. It's top of mind, and really we can't make any moves without being sure that we have cap space to do it. And whether that's performance bonuses that we look at or other things, it's something that we look at closely.
Well, and Bill, the practical concern sometimes is, I always give the GMs a bad time for hanging out at practice. What a waste of time in my mind. Mm-hmm. But it's part of the fun part of the game. But there's sometimes there because the first thing they're doing after practice is running down, talking to the training staff, talking to the doctor, because they need to get back to Bill as to whether this guy is going to be able to be healthy tonight. Because if he's not healthy, we're bringing a guy up tomorrow, and Bill's got to give them the analysis of whether we can do that or not. And so there's a lot of dynamics that are going along behind this that fans don't understand. The doctor, Bill's dying sometimes to hope the doctor says he's ready, because they can't really afford his salary and another guy's on the cap because his injury short term. It's stuff they don't think about, right? Bill's down there just hoping.
100%. Well, I mean, we're in a situation now with no extra forwards or defensemen that are healthy. And we have a goalie recalled from Bakersfield and Ollie Rodriguez. So we're in that time that you're talking about, Rich, where you're hoping the doctor is always giving you good news.
Yeah.
Now, Bill, at the start of the year, when you put Kane on LTIR, but not in LTIR, what was the benefit? Why couldn't he have just stayed on IR?
Yeah, we felt that at that time in the year, we had an opportunity to almost nail the capture. And what I mean by that is we were almost exactly at $88 million with Kane on our regular roster, just on IR at that time in the year. We could have accrued some space during the year and put Kane on at a later date. But we may not have been able to maximize our capture at that time. We might have accrued some space, which sounds like a good thing, but we might have been $200,000 short of maximizing it when we needed to put Kane on LTIR. So we just took advantage of that situation earlier in the year and said, let's put him on now. We'll get basically the full 88 million to use, and we won't have to worry about it. Should something happen at some random time and we end up losing $500,000 or $600,000 of cap space that we could grab on day one.
Now, looking at, and you talked about when you took your first job, I'm an equipment manager and I'm video, and video has obviously changed a lot then than it has now. So just like the salary cap obviously wasn't in place when you started in the ECHL, that it became in place. So really, since you've been in the NHL, the salary cap's always been there, but it's always changing, even, under the certain rules and different things like that. So when you look at kind of the role of his assistant manager, you're an evaluator of scouting, at pro mostly, right? But then you're also doing player. How do you balance, like, if you had to list off like your main three priorities, like let's say you were applying for another job, and on Bill Scott's resume, what's 1, 2, and 3 as far as priorities for you as assistant GM of the Oilers?
Yeah, I think the top three things for myself would be obviously our salary cap and contract negotiation. I kind of put those two things together because generally for most teams, people that are in charge of the salary cap are also doing contract negotiation at some level. Part two would probably be our CBA interpretation and compliance. That falls under my category, and it hits a lot of different things for us in a lot of different departments. Basically telling people what the rules are internally and with our players. And then probably number three would be the scouting side of it. I think I can do my job better as a negotiator, knowing the players in the league and who the comparables are for different players, why they're comparables, and rather than them just being numbers on a piece of paper, style of play, things like that as well. And then also when we're looking at evaluating for trade deadline moves, signings in the summer, having a better handle on the league and the different players, I think is a significant advantage as well.
And Bill's got a quality of his priorities are I understand, but his qualities that lead all of us to enjoy dealing with him is, unlike many, he's incredibly responsive. He's kind. And he cares about the people he deals with, and he's just, his priorities are his priorities. But what carries him in this job is that he just has a very good way of dealing with people, being respectful. And I would say most people in this game have a lot of love and affection for Bill because of the way he conducts himself, and that's why he's so good at his job.
How'd you learn that, Bill?
Well, I think my dad, number one. First and foremost, my father, for sure. I've been able to see the other side of it, which I think helps me in talking to the agents, because I've seen my dad negotiate contracts for players. I've seen what it's like on that side of the business, so I have a great respect for what the agent does and has to go through. They're dealing with not only themselves and what they think fair market value is. They're dealing with the player. They're dealing with the players' families. They're dealing with the union as well. So they've got a lot on their plate as well. So I have lots of respect for what they have to do on a daily basis. And I think, basic human nature, just treat others how you want to be treated. It's very simple. It's a small group of people that work in this industry. You're going to be crossing paths with them numerous times over your career. And I think it's certainly better to have a good relationship than a bad one. So just treat people well.
Yeah. Reading the future tea leaves, Bill. Trends always happen in sports for a lot of different things. And a lot of people are like, oh, look at the St. Louis Blues and the offer sheets. And so now we're going to have a real big run of offer sheets. There is more cap space this summer than we've seen in a long time in the NHL. So do you think we're going to see an influx of offer sheets, or is it going to be harder because now teams have more space to match?
Well, I think that's exactly it. I'm not sure which way that's going to go yet. At the end of the day, you end up oftentimes I think teams or people believe they might end up in an offer sheet position when a player feels his value's much higher than the team's willing to offer. So are we going to get into that position a bunch in the future? It's tough to say. I mean, the salary cap is certainly going to go up considerably over the next few years, as we know. We don't know what that will look like for every individual team. It might be great for some teams, and some other teams might have trouble spending to that amount every year. So we don't quite know how this is going to play out over the next few years, but certainly, obviously, our situation last year highlighted offer sheets and those being used, and I think it's being talked about a lot more nowadays. And to your point, teams are going to have more cap space to sign their own players, but does the valuation make sense? And we'll see where that goes. So I think only time will tell on that side of it.
If you are looking to hire someone in the organization, now it's rare that their first job is assistant manager, GM. Now, some guys, maybe if they're former players, sometimes they get that, but in a lot of cases, it's not. Now, you took the business management degree at NCAA Michigan State. So is that like a minimum requirement? What would, if any of our listeners out there are like, man, I want to be Bill Scott in 15 or 20 years, other than the work ethic, what's the education? What are the things you need in your holster that you'll have a chance to maybe get that job?
Yeah, well, I think certainly for my position, I'm probably a little unique in that I'm not a lawyer. And I would say the majority of people in my position are lawyers. And I think that is a great asset to have if you do have a law degree, because you've been through negotiations, arbitrations, putting together briefs and things like that can be a tremendous advantage, especially early on. That was something I had to learn when I got this job. Overall, I think I don't know that there's a specific degree you have to have. I can't tell you that I used my business management degree, on October 20th in 2005. It really helped me out. I find people that end up going to college or university, it just shows that you're able to accept that task and get through it, and go from there. So you've got a certain level of competency from that side of it. But I think generally, at the end of the day, it's about relationships, and it's about people proving that they're willing to be team players, that they want to work towards a single goal in a team environment. There's lots of people that seem to have their eyes set on a really high job really early, and I try and discourage that with them. You certainly don't want to hear that. There's so many people that have been around, and I was probably like that at some point too. And just in experience now, you don't want to hear from somebody who says, well, in 2 years, I think I'm going to be an assistant GM. And, hopefully in 7 years, I'm going to be a general manager. And you kind of look around your staff and you're going, well, that person's worked for 15 years for us and they're not there yet. And that person's worked for 20 years and that person's worked for 8 years. So I think it's having humility, and providing value, and what that value looks like can be very difficult for people, because a lot of people just want to work in the business, and I was one of them. I wasn't a scout, I wasn't a coach, I wasn't a former NHL player, even pro player. So how do you get in there and provide value to a team? And that's where I think it goes back to just being willing to do whatever it is they ask.
Well, it's funny you say that, Bill, because I remember one night I was in bed, got a call, and I was talking to this guy, Darcy, right? And my wife says to me after the call, is that the guy that picked us up at the airport when David Volek defected? Yeah, they're right. It was the guy. It's Darcy. Yeah, Darcy Regier. He's now. What she says? What's he doing now? He's the general manager. And Darcy was, good at being political. He was respectful, and that's what happens. Take the job they give you, like Bill did, and find and build the relationships. Because ultimately, this is a pretty simple business, like any other business. You give the guy the opportunity that you like. How do you get to like him? Because you don't if you don't know him. So, Cindy, I remember just going, wow, maybe you should have gone on the other side. If the guy driving us back from the airport gets a GM job, what do they make, Rich? So I think it's just, there's so many stories. Peter Luco, who ran Comcast Spectacor, started cleaning the dressing rooms in a small American Hockey League ring. Get in there, get to know them, because if you're not in front of their face, they're not going to give you that chance. We've seen movies, we've seen so many stories about Jason, where's that kid Jason, right? Like, he was here yesterday. He would do this. And next thing you know, you got a job. I think Bill's right. The education. We've got, people in this business that, used to be firefighters. I mean, you don't have to have a law degree, but you do have to have a client. And remember that old Jerry Maguire line? It's all about personal relationships, the old guy said. And it's really get in front of people, get to know them, hang out with hockey players, find a way to have conversations that lead people to know they like you.
Yeah. And Bill, saying that, you've had numerous general managers in your tenure with the Edmonton Oilers. And so when a new GM in hockey, we see it all the time. They like to quote, bring in their people, their guys. How nerve-wracking was that going through it every time? And have you gained experience on knowing, like, hey, like, obviously I'm valuable, I know what I'm doing, but when a new person comes in, you don't really know until they get a chance to know you. How did you maneuver those waters?
Yeah, well, it's nerve-wracking. There's no doubt about that. Early on, obviously, Steve Tambellini hired me. And when Craig McTavish took over for Steve, Craig had spent a lot of time in Oklahoma City with us. So, and he was very quick to say, everything's good, nothing to worry about. I think my contract was up when he got hired, so he extended that quickly. So that was easy. That one was easy. It was almost internal. But then when Peter Chiarelli came in, that one was a little more nerve-wracking. I didn't know Peter well. I had a slight relationship with him, but he treated me very well. And then when Ken Holland came in, again, somebody I didn't really know. I think I had met once. And my attitude has always just been, everyone is entitled to bring in their own people. I would never hold any ill will, as upset as you would be about losing your job. It's certainly their right. This is a team sport. You bring in new players, you're allowed to bring in new staff, whatever you want to do. But I've tried to take like a humble servant type of attitude with the general manager, which is to say, I believe my position is to serve the general manager, to give him good information so that he can make the best decisions for the organization. I'm not here to be the general manager. I'm here to do my job and do it well. And hopefully that helps the general manager do his job well. And I think when you have the right attitude and it's genuine, people realize that quickly. And they still may get rid of you. There's lots of good people that have been let go because a new general manager came in.
Because the new general manager didn't want a smart guy in the office that was smarter than him so he could cover himself. There's tons of that going on.
Yeah, so that stuff happens, but I think it's just having the right attitude and let the cards fall as they may. It's out of your control, so you can't sweat it too much, and hopefully you do a good job. Hopefully you just get a chance to show them what you can do, and then it's up to them.
Yeah. Bill, we have a lot of people wondering, do you have the magic socks from McDavid's draft? Do you have them anywhere?
You know what? It's funny. I had them in a drawer for years, and I still have the golden card that they flipped over on the show. And about 2 years ago, I gave it to Connor. I said, Connor, can you sign this? So I got it signed. I've got the socks, and I've got it in a frame at my house now. It's kind of a neat memento. Yeah, it's pretty neat thing.
You didn't save the picture of the look on his face when he was drafted by Edmonton. He seems to have changed that, but that was interesting, wasn't it? I'm sure.
Yeah. I think he was. You know what? I think he was as shocked as we all were.
Yeah,
that we actually won that lottery. We won a couple more, and when we went there, I didn't really think we were going to win, but I sure was glad we did.
So you're in that private room, right, when they're doing the draw? So, and you can't celebrate. So
No.
tell like you're sitting there, there's all the other teams, and all of a sudden it's just, we just got the next like superstar player, right?
Yeah.
And this, and he's lived up to it, which is really hard to do. But like how did you finally go out somewhere around a building and fist pump and scream, yeah, bleep, bleep, bleep? Like, how long did it take? Like, who was the first
Tell
person?
the truth here. Tell the truth here, Bill.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they had us sequestered in that room for about 20 more minutes, and they wouldn't let anybody out because the broadcast was going on. And so that was incredibly awkward. You're sitting beside, the 5 or 6 other teams that were there, and they're ticked. They've all had a tough year. They went into the night with some hope, and it didn't go well for them, and it went great for us. So it was hard to, wipe the smile off my face probably at that time. And I was new to the NHL. I think that was my second. I think I had just been through my first season in Edmonton, and you're in there with general managers from teams that have been around forever. So it was incredibly awkward, but incredibly exciting. And then really, I think it was by the time I got back to the hotel afterwards, and talked to Mac T and Kevin Lowe, and who some of those guys were over in Europe at the time, and then talk to my parents and different things like that, and just see the number of text messages from buddies and stuff like that on the phone. It was a really cool moment.
I remember what the first thing Craig McTavish told me after the draft was, I thought it was really a great point. He said, Rich, this guy is going to make a lot of general managers look a lot smarter than they are. And and it turned out, we'll decide who did and who didn't later, but it really has helped you guys a lot.
Well, but the funny thing is, Bill, when you drafted Leon Draisaitl, when you look back now a decade later, that's almost, like there's not much of a difference between, how impactful he's been for your organization.
Oh,
he's been unbelievable. He's been unbelievable. I've always said he's really probably the key to our success, because Connor was kind of always playing at a certain level, and Leon, you just saw the potential. And he was a little more inconsistent early in his career. But the way he's taken off, and really he's just gotten better and better and better every year. And I think he's playing like an MVP this year for us. He's been absolutely outstanding. Best player in the league in my mind. And yeah, you're not kidding. Getting those two guys in back-to-back drafts was unbelievable for our franchise.
For sure.
And if you get it drafted well in the other rounds, well,
we filled in pretty good right now. We filled in pretty good.
I know, Bill, but it's tough to draft well, right? It's tough to draft well, and it is harder in the second round, later rounds. But I'm sure there's a number of draft picks you'd like to have back. Everybody does, but getting those two guys did sort of smooth out a lot of the rough spots. Yeah,
no, they've been excellent. They've been excellent for sure.
Well, Bill, thanks so much for joining us on the Business of Sports, and continued success, and best of luck when the playoffs begin in 17 days.
It's almost here. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Bill, for just being a good example and a good guy to deal with. I really appreciate you and our friendship a lot.
Sounds like you're trying to get $50K off on the next deal.
Yeah, I was going to call you about that tomorrow. I got 2 college kids I really want to talk to you about. I thought maybe.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Rich. Always good to do.
Take care.
Thanks, Bill. Okay. That's Bill Scott, assistant GM of the Edmonton Oilers. We're a little bit late, so Rich, have a great day, and we will chat with you. As an awesome edition of the Business of Sports. We'll talk to you next Wednesday. Have a good.
Take care of yourself. Cold FX. Get some sleep.